This is what we want to get into. We are going to deal with you ruthlessly. Kindiki is warning criminals. It's the state of security here in the country. The Interior Cabinet Secretary announcing what he calls unprecedented, merciless response to counter the criminal guns, as the government responded to a public outcry over a wave of crime gripping the city and other parts of the country. Because you're a security expert, Dennis, I'll give you an opportunity just to give us an idea, just to get a sense of why the situation is so bad right now when we're looking at the internal security. In Nairobi, you cannot walk with your phone on your hand. It is completely difficult right now. When you're looking at the situation in the North Rift, it feels like it's a criminal gang haven at this point.
You know, one of the things that we have to do is discuss. When you're talking about security, we talk about fact. It's a scientific exercise. Zainab, that's one of the things that we have to. We have various forms of crime. We categorize them into 5 categories. We have what we call the violent crime, property crime, white collar crime, which is basically corruption, organized crime, and consensual and victimless crime. It is a fact that several things have happened. Number one, the police force was under transition. The government itself is under transition. Even the accounting officer, the PS, the PS for internal security was being interviewed yesterday. It is true that there's what it is that we call violent crime that has come up in Nairobi, you know, at the end of the day. But then it's important for us to note specific things. One of the things that we study is the origin of specific crimes and the pattern of that crime.
Right.
But I can tell them one thing, Zainab, starting from today, that crime will not happen again. Now, one of the interesting things that I need to tell Kenyans is that you have the best Inspector General of Police that you've never had for the last 20 years. Why am I saying that? It's because for the first time, a career policeman has risen through the ranks to drive his own force. You remember in 2002, we had a general who took over the police force. And then after that, we had an accounting officer who took over the police force. Then we had 2 commanders from NIS. This is the first time for the last 20 years that we have a career policeman who has risen through the ranks to be the Inspector General of Police. Then it means we have institutional memory in terms of driving the police force, institutional memory in terms of driving where the reforms need to be. Now, I need to tell people, there is no police officer who knows Nairobi like the Inspector General Kome. He has headed and driven Nairobi when crime was the worst at the end of the day, and he silenced it. So I need to say one thing. We have all new sheriffs in town, from His Excellency to the Cabinet Secretary to the Inspector General of Police. I can tell you today, and I'll be here next week with you when you invite me, that crime is over as we talk. One of the things that has happened is that intelligence has already been mined and processed. And I can tell you, one of the most shocking things that I discovered as early as 2 days ago is that this is not opportunistic crime that is necessarily driven by cost of life. This is what we call organized crime. The pattern of this crime, which essentially emanates and it is backed with a PR activity of foreign-driven videos. Only one video that I have seen that is from Kenya. The rest is 2-year-old from South Africa. Another one is from Uganda, and even those reports were mined at the end of the day. The organized crime is essentially supposed to discredit the government of the day. But it is a fact that that crime is available in Nairobi.
That the security situation is not as bad as...
I did not say it is not as bad.
Right.
I said there's crime in Nairobi. And that crime, as from today, it has stopped. The second thing I have said is that the nature of this crime is not what we call sporadic crime. You understand? It is not sporadic crime. It is part of what we call organized crime. The same organizations that are in banditry, they are organized crime. Their type of weaponry, their supply of bullets, the type of economic gain that they want to achieve is what we call, it's part of the organized crime. It falls essentially under the categories of terrorism and many other things, essentially. Even what I have been telling, what I have been championing, and if at the end of the day, what is happening in the banditry-prone areas falls squarely under the Terrorism Act. when you raid a police station, when you steal the guns, when you maim Kenyans, when you whatever you do, that we must disqualify it as mere banditry and cattle rustling, and we must say this indeed falls under the true definition of the Terrorism Act in the country. So what I'm saying, because this is organized crime at the end of the day, because somebody has a specific intention and a specific gain to drive, that intelligence has been mined, and I'll be here with you next week so that you can tell me who was mugged where. And it is extremely unfortunate that Kenyans would suffer under the hands of a few people in a nation that is sovereign at the end of the day. And it's absolutely absurd. But I am pleased by the fact that we have one of the best experts in as the Inspector General of Police today. I am glad that security will be reinstated in Nairobi. Yesterday I did a social experiment, and this is what I say. I mean, I'm a security expert, so I know many of these areas. I am a minister of the gospel, so I did my most of my ministry in Mathare and in many of the slums. Yesterday I drove downtown for 3 solid hours with my windows down and my phones and every gadget on this other seat. Then I wanted to know, essentially, those areas that have been called hotspots, what essentially Kenyans are expecting. And I walked across town. And I want to say that one of the things that we must reinstate as a government is the Nyumba Kumi policing. The community policing concept is essentially centric in terms of ensuring that Kenyans also take charge of their security, wherever they are, and then they receive the government enforcement where necessary.
All right.
Number 2, it's absolutely important that the government of the day motivates those who are good police officers. And I'm championing and I'm crying, you know, at the end of the day, that there will be at least some salary raise, because the last one that happened during the days of Kibaki. Okay. So we are looking at good times coming along.
I want to get, so your social experiment, what did you achieve out of it?
One of the things that, because I've been doing that essentially for the whole week.
Yeah.
You see, I sit at a place where I can at least advise one of the day. The sporadic events that have happened are accurate.
Right.
We are not saying they're not there. They're accurate. They indeed happened. The type is that there is what we call violent, a robbery with violence, but then you're not just stealing, you're also stabbing. You have an intent to kill. And an intent to kill, what you want to do is amplify the crime that has been done. For whatever gain, we don't know. Because once you achieve to take a pass or a phone from somebody, what is your interest in terms of making sure that you stab that person and you amplify the issue?
Zainab,
right, okay.
Let me
the CBD is the most policed area. The CBD has in excess of about 600 officers thereabout, and uniformed and thereabout. That is why there's no bank robbery that can happen here.
But Dennis,
let me change the debate.
But Dennis, is it a reflection? So when we're looking at the state of security and the policing that is already there in terms of in the CBD, but it is not reflecting on the amount of cases that we are getting, even as journalists, every single day, of people getting mugged, killed, even stabbed.
So I looked at the report. How many incidents did you get?
I'm going to give you...
let me put in a different angle.